I'm Keely from SaratogaWine.com, and today I'm here with Ben Glover from Zephyr Winery. Great wine,
better prices,
delivered right to your door. SaratogaWine.com.
Ben, thank you so much for joining us from New Zealand. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your winery and a little bit about the products you brought today?
Yeah, I sure can. Look, thank you very much for the opportunity of rocking up there and having a bit of a cruise through the wines. I suppose really the wines are out of Marlborough, New Zealand, which is a bit of background is New Zealand's biggest grape growing region, produce about 80% of New Zealand's wine. So Marlborough is a pretty important part of the New Zealand wine industry, and it's at the top of the South Island. So a lot of the influence comes out of Antarctica with that cooling wind that comes up the coastline, and that's basically what allows us to provide some fantastic wines with great acidity, I've got a new word, juicidity. So juicy, crunchy acidity, but great flavours that go through the palate.
Yeah,
so
that makes a lot of sense for Sauvignon Blanc for that type of region. What about your winery? How long has that been around, and what's the story behind that?
Yeah, well, the story behind how I got into the wine industry, I suppose, is I grew up on a dairy farm. Mum and dad, fourth generation farmers or dairy farmers, and I think he realised that none of his kids wanted to get up at 4 in the morning and milk cows, so he converted that in the 80s. So in 1988 was the first time we put grapes into the ground from the old dairy farm, and then from there haven't really looked back. So we now farm about 170 acres off two vineyard sites. It's particularly if you're single vineyard and family owned, and that they've got to express your sense of place.
Sure.
And we've got a Māori word at home, which is tūranga waiwai, which is essentially, I said that a bit quickly, but it's essentially the same definition as probably what the French use, which is that word terroir.
Okay.
And so it's where you're from, where your sense of place is, where you feel comfortable, and what you're expressing. And that's essentially what we're
and what the land can bring to the product. Yeah. So we have a Riesling to taste first?
We certainly do.
All right.
Should we give it a go?
We should give it a go.
Okay. So it's just a little block we've got. Also probably in 2017, my wife and I, Susie, bought half the vineyard off my mum and dad, and we converted that into organics. And I think what we see from that in the Riesling, we see lovely, bright lemon pith, lime juice, lime blossom, and then fantastic acid that just runs down the.
I mean, the nose on this is unmistakably Riesling. You're right with the citrus for sure. There is a ton of pith from citrus that is very pronounced. It's very fresh.
Yep.
Really refreshing.
Yeah, and that's what I try and find. It's dry, the Riesling, so not sweet, but it has some lovely sort of sweet balance through that mid palate, and that pithiness really provides some great, I suppose, what we have called previously, sort of a textural capacity of the wine.
Complexity. I mean, it adds another level that I think is that is delicious.
Yeah.
What do we move on to next?
Well, we're going to go to the mainstay of Marlborough, which is obviously Sauvignon Blanc, where we are. We're about 3 miles from the high tide mark, called the Dillon's Point sub-region, and it's sort of river delta country. So you've got lovely silt loam, so it's quite herbal in its delivery as a wine, and again, citrus based like the Riesling we've just tried.
Yep.
But sort of like a salted lime or salted lemon citrus, but then a lot more herbal notes that come through, but ripe herbs, like with jalapeno and tomato leaf.
That's a beautiful nose.
And the whole aim for me for the style is the wines, they've got to be expressive, and obviously they're fruit driven out of like a young country like New Zealand and Marlborough, but I think they've still got to be restrained. So the whole aim for me is they shouldn't be a conversation stopper, and they should aid the food and the conversation and the company you're with.
I think you got the balance right there. I love the herbal notes. Obviously, it has those characteristics of New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc that everybody loves, but there is other things going on here which make it really interesting. I like it a lot. So the third product I see you have here is a red. It's a Pinot.
It is, yes.
And again, is Pinot Noir a common varietal in New Zealand, or it's becoming more popular, or?
Yeah, look, it's probably our most planted red. Okay. Well, it is our most planted red.
Sure.
And it's particularly well suited to the South Island and the lower North Island. So there's a lot of interest that goes into Pinot Noir.
Should we give it a try?
Yep. So Marlborough Pinot Noir is all about cherries. And again, Pinot's sort of, I think it is a sort of an aromatic.
Sure.
You know, you really get seduced by the nose. If
Yeah,
it's a good nose,
this is a great nose.
You're sort of really, you're home and hosed really, if you get that right.
It's a very rich nose. I feel like there's a lot to it. I think the cherries is prominent, but it also, it has a nice, alluring kind of sweetness to it that makes you want to really give it a try.
Yeah, yeah.
Really nice.
Nice is a really key word when it comes to wine.
These wines are more than nice,
I know,
Ben.
yeah.
No, very good. Honestly, they're balanced, I think, is one of the key things I find from everything we've tasted today.
Yeah.
And I think the Riesling from New Zealand is very interesting. Obviously, the Sauvignon Blanc is what you're known for.
Yeah.
And I think to throw in a beautiful Pinot like this really rounds off this little lineup. So thank you.
No, not a problem at all.
I appreciate it.
No.
I hope you enjoy your travels. I know you've been making your way across the world to visit people and share your products. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming. Thank you.
No, look, thanks for the opportunity. No, cheers.
Cheers.
Good health.
And
all
cheers.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Don't forget to check us out, SaratogaWine.com. Thank you.